I'm going to do some pedestrian movement to describe the joint movement because we don't just dance on stage or in the studio. It's because of our joints that we're allowed to move through space. So I'll be doing one movement sequence and then describing it from my head to my toes and then kind of filling in the blanks with where that doesn't, okay. So here we go. Okay, so I'll start with my temporomandibular joint, and that's what that does. We can chew and speak. And then we go to the atlas and axis. So when I do this motion here, it is my atlas that's moving up and down in the sagittal plane. And then when I turn my head this way, it's the axis in the transverse plane that allows me to do that. And then we'll do the spine movement. And as I'm walking, there's a slight but very important movement in the transverse plane. And if there wasn't movement in the transverse plane, then we would be walking like this, which we don't. So there's transverse, and then as I reach up, there's hyperextension right here in the spine. And then there's flexion. This is all in the sagittal plane, and then we get in transverse plane. And then we've got this movement, which is in the frontal plane of the spine, like if you wanted to reach over, like hi to someone. Okay, then we have sternoclavicular here, and there's movement in the sagittal and the frontal plane. And when I reach up here in the frontal plane, we feel that. Yes. Okay. And then we go down further to the acromioclavicular joint. And when I reach up here, this is a ball and socket joint. And I reach up and there's movement in the sagittal and in the frontal plane, and then there's all of this movement here in the transverse plane. And okay, then we have the clavicle. No, then we have the the scapula. We have the scapula. Okay. So we have the scapula, and as I reach up, the scapula is moving upwards in the frontal plane, and then if I were to reach like really far over it, then there would be this movement in the sagittal plane. Then we go down to the elbow, and this is a hinge joint, and it only moves in the sagittal plane here. And then the wrist, which is also a hinge joint, which moves both in the sagittal and the frontal plane, and it can do adduction and abduction. And then we've got the thumb, which is a saddle joint, and it's there are two axes of motion. And let's see what else. We've got all these carpal bones with no axis of motion, or multiple axes of motion, and then the metacarpal and the phalanges, which flex and extend, and then hyperextend, which you can see here. I don't know if you can see this. Okay. And then the wrist also flexes and extends and hyperextends. We've got flexion, extension, hyperextension, and then flexion, extension, hyperextension. Okay, then we've got the hips, and that's ball and socket. And when we're moving, I'll do this several times, there's flexion and extension, and then hyperextension, flexion, extension, hyperextension. And that's in the sagittal plane, but you can also move in the frontal plane, and then you can move transverse here with all of this motion. Then you go to some knees, and this is a hinge joint. And when you walk, it's the same here with flexion, extension, and you shouldn't have hyperextension in the knees, but some people do, and it's really dangerous for your knees.